I want to tell you about the priest that wants to give this guy in the hospital his last rites. And as he's doing that, the patient indicates that he wants something to write on. So he looks around, the priest looks around, and he finds a piece of paper, and he gives it to the patient. And right after he writes the note, he passes away. So the priest is really upset about this, so he doesn't even look at the note. He just puts it in his pocket. And a few days later, he's at the funeral, and he notices that he's wearing the same jacket that he had in the hospital. And so he gives a eulogy. He tells him what a great guy Frank was. He was loved by all members of the community, and he was a pillar of strength. And we can all learn by what he had to say. And I happen to be very fortunate because I happen to be with him on his very last day on earth, where he handed me a note, and I'll read it to you right now. And he puts his hand in the pocket, and he pulls out the note, and he says, "Hey, you're standing on my breathing tube." Anyway, there's this magistrate that goes and he's in court, and this woman is before him for shoplifting. So he says to the girl, "Tell me something. What did you steal?" She says, "I only stole a can of pears." He says, "Okay, well, how many pears were in the can?" And she says, "Only 4. He says, "Okay, I sentence you to 4 days in jail." And he presses his gavel down, and the sentence is passed. And then her husband just said, "Excuse me, Your Honor, she also stole a can of peas." Anyway, there's a blonde, a redhead, and a brunette, and they're shipwrecked on a desert island. And the blonde, as she's walking around, she comes across a lamp on the floor, and so she starts rubbing the lamp, and lo and behold, a genie comes out, and her girlfriends come over, and they look at her, and he says, "Oh," he says, "I've been in here for 4,000 years, and you set me free by just rubbing the lamp." He says, "Thank God you're here, you know." He says, I normally grant 3 wishes for letting you free, but since there's 3 of you, I can only grant each of you 1 wish. So he says, "Okay, well, the brunette goes first, and she says, "You know what, it's really lonely on this island. I'd really like to be back at home with my friends." And the genie says, "Your wish is my command." She's immediately transported back to her friends and family. And then the redhead is looking at, observing all this, and the genie says, "Okay, you're the second person. What would you like? You can have any wish at all. I'll grant it for you." And she said, "Well, my girlfriend's got the right price, the right idea, because we've been on this island for 3 weeks now. We haven't seen anybody. We're going to starve to death if we stay here. So I'd like to be at home with my family and friends." And the genie goes, and she's transported back to her family and friends. Now the blonde comes up, and he says, "You're the last one, the last wish, and then I'm free for life. You know, I can get up and do other things in the world. What would you like as your last wish? As the last wish, please tell me. Anything you want, I'll grant you." She says, "You know what? It sure is lonely here. I wish I was back with my family and friends. I wish they were here on the island with me." And the genie says, "Whoop," and she's immediately friends were immediately transported back to the island. Anyway. Anyway, there's a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. And no, this one is a blonde. And the blonde says she suspects her husband is having an affair. So she leaves work early and she comes back, and lo and behold, her husband is in bed with a beautiful redhead. So she immediately she gets out of it. She took a gun to the meeting, so she takes the gun out and she says, "I'm gonna kill myself." And her husband says, no, don't do that. Do anything, but, I will never do this again. She says, "Shut up, you're next." Okay. I was driving down a one-way street the wrong way, and the policeman stopped me, and he says, "Where do you think you're going?" I said, "I'm going to a party at the JCC, but I must be late because everyone's coming back." This guy goes, just one more. This guy goes to his doctor, and he says, the doctor says, "I've got some good news and I've got some bad news." He says, "Well, tell me, what's the good news?" He says, "The good news is that you've got 24 hours to live." He says, "Come on, that can't be the good news. What could possibly be the bad news?" He says, "Well, your results came in yesterday, but we couldn't get a hold of you." Okay.